Baxter Holmes of ESPN dropped an article today. Now, I don't know if it's the article, but it's an article. And it's north of 6,000 words. And pretty much none of those words are good for Tragic, Rob Pelinka, Jeannie Buss, or the Lakers. You know, it describes the reboot of the Lakers, the so-called Lakers 2.0, as a complete disaster. Having read this piece, I can tell you, it's pretty amazing. Like, I'm not sure I'd call it a sledgehammer because just about none of it's surprising. It's pretty much exactly what you'd expect. It's just that this pulls it all together. Like culture. We talk about this almost every single day on this show. Culture is the single biggest buzzword in all of sports right now. And according to multiple sources for the article, the Lakers, under Magic, had a culture of intimidation, bullying, fear, and incompetence to the point where multiple staffers had anxiety attacks. Like working for the Lakers was giving people panic attacks. Or to quote one former Lakers star, quote, "It's bleeping crazy over there." I mean, starting from the very first meeting with the employees, where Magic reportedly told them repeatedly he had, quote, 1,000, end quote, resumes sitting on his desk, and he could replace any of them at any time. One coaching staff member who was present said, quote, "It was shocking. If you're going to be in this business, you bring enough pressure on yourself. You don't need more pressure, especially from somebody who's supposed to be an ally," end quote. And allegedly for Magic, that was just the start. According to one front office staffer, quote, "If you question him on anything, his response was always a threatening tone. He used intimidation and bullying as a way of showing authority," end quote. Oh, it's only a couple of paragraphs in. Only a couple of paragraphs in, we've already hit on intimidation and bullying. So Magic's claim that ESPN has hired him twice, which seemed really weird at the time, seems even dumber now. But not as weird as ESPN advertising that Magic is going to be on their finals coverage going forward. Put that aside for a minute. Like, it was a widely known fact, too, that Magic was not grinding the way that most front office personnel grind. Here's further evidence of that. According to Holmes, Johnson was, quote, "frequently absent, sometimes appearing only once a week or every 2 weeks," end quote. Yeah, and I guess when he did show up, apparently it was just long enough or just to bully somebody into a panic attack. I mean, that's absolutely amazing, honestly. Not surprising, but nonetheless amazing. This guy is president of basketball operations for an NBA team. For an NBA team. For the NBA team. And this guy's showing up once a week or once every other week? I mean, he's treating being president of basketball operations the way most people treat the gym. Yeah, I'll get there if I can, but I'll probably only get in there a couple of times a month. Maybe, if I'm up for it, if I'm motivated. And then again, when the guy does roll in for one of his weekly or bi-weekly visits, according to this account, it was a nightmare for anyone and everyone that he came in contact with. I mean, God, there's so much more. Like one staffer who had been with the Lakers for more than 2 decades was shouted out by Magic to the point that she left the facility, began to cry, and then in the months that followed, suffered increased anxiety and panic attacks, and then just left the organization altogether, according to this piece. And according to the piece, she was not alone. One Laker exec told Holmes that he also suffered panic attacks and was prescribed anti-anxiety medication. Quote, "Every day you go in there and you get this horrible feeling of anxiety. In the last year, I can't say how many panic attacks I've had from the bleep that has happened there," end quote. Wait a minute, we're talking about Magic, right? I thought Magic was this incredibly charismatic guy with the $1 million smile. Yeah, well, apparently that's not what was going on behind the scenes. One former member of the training staff said, quote, "He comes off to the fan base with the big love and the smile, but he's not. He's a fear monger," end quote. Another referred to working with him as, quote, "a roller coaster ride of up and down," end quote. So, I mean, it's bad enough to be like a horrible guy, but good at your job. We know guys like that, right? Horrible guys, but good at their job. This just sounds like a horrible guy who was horrible at his job, if in fact he even showed up for his job at all. And then on top of all that, there is the organizational staff turnover, which Holmes calculated at 37.5% since the 2016-2017 media guide was published. So, if you're running through more than a third of your staff every few years, that tells you it's a horrible place to work. Signed, Jim Rome's XR4TI crew. Yeah, thanks for that, Dusmati. Thanks for nothing, jail. I hate to say it, but if I did the math, I'm probably worse than them. Anyway, it's worth noting that no official complaints against Magic were filed to the team or the league. But if you believe what you read in this piece, and again, why wouldn't you? It's just further evidence of what I've always said. We really don't know any of these guys, do we? Because if I were to ask you what you thought of Magic Johnson, many of you would say, oh, best guy ever. Best guy ever. But if you ask any of the people who spoke to this reporter, they'd probably say one of the worst guys ever. And if he's not that, then he's just one of the worst bosses ever. I mean, what's worse? If you worked there, what would be worse? Magic never being around or Magic being around? Sounds like tie for last. And the only thing more amazing than me rolling out a Memorial Day weekend with a take on the LA Lakers is that I have another take on the LA Lakers from that same piece. I just can't fit it all into the open. That's how much of a mess it is. That's how much of a mess they are. Big enough that I would roll out a Memorial Day weekend with a take on the Lakers, and they are nowhere near sniffing the postseason.